Hey, how you doing, guys? This is Josh Williams with Ronin. Joining me is Melvin. We are going to be working on how to wrap hands for MMA. So pay attention. We're not going over it twice. All right, Mel, keep your hands. There you go. All right, so first, have the person extend their hand usually over the back of a chair. If you're going to be, I'm only doing Mel's one hand, so we're not worried about it. But if we're doing both, usually we'd like to have like a pad underneath here because it can sometimes be rough on the guy's forearms. It'll like burn his arms out a little bit. So we have his hands extended this way. We're gonna start by wrapping at the wrist. Just get it to where it hangs on to itself and it doesn't want to slide around too much. Give it a couple of wraps to anchor it into place. And now we start working our way down from the wrist and then crisscrossing across the hand and back across with these crisscross patterns. These are what add stability in a layered kind of pattern. Same idea would be like with layering shingles or when they used to wrap and layer casts. Same concept. So after I've gotten a handful of these wrapped around in a relatively thin layer, I've got a pre-made pad made up of gauze as well. Now all I do is I wrap these around essentially like a note card, and I'll make it about 6 inches long, and then I slide the card out and you're left with a pad kind of like this, okay? I'm gonna place the pad to where it just covers his knuckles by about a ½ an inch up over towards the back of his hand. The rest of it's gonna hang towards his fingers, okay? Centered pretty much across his knuckles. I'm gonna anchor it into place with the gauze, a couple of wraps, and then we fold it back over, and that's what gives it the rest of the pad in terms of thickness. And I can adjust it with my fingers to keep it held into place. Now, a little bit of this is just aesthetic in terms of making it look relatively tight. But then I get essentially back to your crossing pattern over top of the pad that we just made, holding it into place, adding strength and stability throughout the wrist and the bones that run across the back of the hand. Specifically, just like in boxing, the ones that always seem to break for us is these knuckles right here in the third and pinky finger. All right, they always call it the boxer's fracture, but it's essentially, if you're gonna break a hand, that's how you're gonna break it. And it's usually from punching in a bad way and hitting part of the skull with something that isn't protected. All right, so now that I've used up my gauze, I've got these pre-cut pieces of tape that we're gonna use here in a second. Turn your hand, actually, like this. First I put some anchored strips of tape on his wrist. Doesn't have to be a whole lot. We don't want to go too tight because we don't know when Melvin's going to be fighting. So if he's got to wear this for a couple of hours, we don't want it to be cutting off his circulation. Part of that is on him. He needs to be telling you if that's good. How's it feel?
It's good.
All right. Turn your hand over for me, Mel. So now I'm going to loosen this up. It's usually kind of tight at this point. So you just run your fingers underneath. And we start with these anchor strips here. Going under. I pull this tight. This comes back. Mel turns his hand over. And I'm going to make sure that the pad comes down just over the top of his knuckles like that. Pin it into place. And then run the tape back to hold it. All right, turn it back over, Mel. We'll just tuck that underneath. Okay. You know, out of habit, it's funny. When I was preparing just briefly for this video, I started cutting these little strips like I was, you know, gonna do this for a fight. Turn it over, man. And as you can see, I made like I was gonna wrap Mel's other hand. And yeah, that ain't gonna happen. So, over. Okay, so you got a crisscross pattern with those. Can you make a fist and it doesn't cut into the webbing of your fingers?
Yes.
Perfect. Now we start back at the wrist. The gauze is simply there for padding. It's not there for real stability. That's where the tape comes in. In Ohio, you're not allowed to have tape past the knuckles. You would have to have essentially tape where I've got it right now, which would be like where the knuckle is, but maybe like a 1/4 inch past it, above that knuckle, okay? Reinforce it, not wanting to dig into the skin. And now we go back to variations of side to side and crisscrossing to add that stability to the wrap. And for MMA, I'm more of a minimalist casting kind of guy. So I don't want to go too thick. I want Melvin to have some dexterity and be able to have some movement in his fist. So we don't go as thick sometimes as a boxing wrap would be. Turn your hand over for me now. All right, so this is the finish right here. This is kind of annoying because this tape is right in his palm. And it's just, it feels sticky and it's aggravating, okay? So what we do is we cut into it at the sides as best we can. Usually I would have a different pair of scissors, but we're gonna do what we can with these here and here, just a little bit. And now we take this and we create a bar underneath by folding and tucking it up under like that. All right, now he can grab a hold of that and it gives him not only a little bit extra stability, he's got, go ahead and make a fist. It's nice, tight across there. He's got good padding across the top and he's got good grip. When he really wants to bear down and grab and make a fist, that bar helps a lot. And it's not so much that if you had a closed palm right here, this would fit weird with almost all the MMA gloves. But this fits pretty much perfect because it fits underneath the strip that most MMA gloves have right here. If you did a closed palm wrap, that's gonna feel weird because then it's up underneath and you've got tape on your skin. And if you're any kind of a grappler, it feels awkward as hell. So, Mel, how's it feel?
Great.
All right, well, he gets to try it tomorrow.